Welcome back to the Contrarians. Martin Popoff here with something that maybe is going to turn into a regular feature, or a show, a concept. I'm calling it "Reliving Old Reviews is a Useless Tool of Confusion." I'll leave it to you to figure out where that quote comes from, but that's going to be the name of the show. Reliving Old Reviews is a Useless Tool of Confusion. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go find a review of an old classic album from its time period. Check out the review, see why they said what they said. What are they comparing it to? Does the review make sense? So for this first episode, I thought I'd go with Kiss's debut album. And this is a review. I don't know where this comes from. It's by AJ. It's from one of the English. I think it's from Melody Maker. I had it just cut out and stuck in one of my Kiss CDs. So we're gonna read this and review this review. Essentially, is what we're gonna do. So, Kiss Casablanca. Despite the articulate defense of Kiss, presented with a persuasive eloquence by some of their admirers, the album remains a disappointment on any level. Pretty interesting. They're already talking like how this band has admirers. They're reviewing the debut album. I don't know how they know who any Kiss fans are at this point. And it's saying it's disappointing, right? It becomes agonizingly clear after the first couple of numbers, Strutter and Nothing to Lose, that Kiss are closer in spirit to the more obese and wretched forms of rock and roll, in brackets, as previously represented by the likes of Rick Wakeman and Argent and a host of their brethren, in bracket, than they are to the spirit which manifested itself in the work of the classic American rock bands of the 60s, like the MC5, Flamin' Groovies, and the Stooges. So, wow, there's a mouthful. So, for some reason, this AJ is comparing Kiss to Argent and Rick Wakeman. At this time period, I've noticed when you read these old reviews, a lot of critics are really fixated with the MC5 and Stooges still. So this is 1974 at this point, right? MC5 and Stooges. Well, Stooges were back with Raw Power, but they're loving this. They're loving this proto nascent. They don't even know it exists yet. Punk rock. There's also this bubbling under rock and roll revival, and the punk rock and the rock and roll revival kind of go together on MC5 back in the USA. So critics like to compare and litmus test against these kinds of bands. I don't know why they're calling Kiss an Argent and Rick Wakeman type band here. I suppose this is a little more polished than the Stooges and MC5. But anyways, let's move on here. I mean, these guys would probably find it much easier to knuckle down to something like Journey to the Center of the Earth than they would to spring Teenage Head or Back in the USA on an unsuspecting public. So now this AJ is comparing them to the Amboy Dukes and Journey to, well, actually, they're probably comparing them to Rick Wakeman. Sorry, at this point. That's Journey to the Center of the Mind. But Teenage Head is Flamin' Groovies, and Back in the USA is, of course, MC5. Their overtly self-conscious attempts to emulate the machinations of high-energy rock bands like the aforementioned trio reveal a complete misunderstanding of the genre. So that's kind of interesting in that this Kiss album actually is a pretty high energy and heavy album for 1974. In certain respects, they are managing to get what MC5 and the Stooges has, but this reviewer is having none of that. Let's see. They lack the essential concentration and stunning precision, which was the hallmark of the MC5 at their glorious best, or the manic force of the Stooges. Again, still fixated on that. But getting it right, MC5 was more precise, and manic force of the Stooges, true. There's no real sense of vehemence or carnage in Kiss's music. It's too controlled and contrived for that sense of real violence. Still, like I say, it's heavier than most things out at the time, and it's more violent and wilder than a lot of things. And it's a pretty wild album just in general. There's not even that sense of commanding string-based illustration of transitory cheap thrills one got from listening to the first New York Dolls album. So yeah, here they're, it sounds like the first New York Dolls album is out, but the second one isn't out. But of course, we got to compare Kiss to the New York Dolls because they're rivals at this point. Certainly, there's nothing here which bears comparison to Jet Boy. So that's on the first New York Dolls album. To paraphrase the current ads for this album, Kiss are a 70s band for all of us who were convinced there weren't any And we're dead right. Kiss are a 70s band for all of us who convinced there weren't any, and we're dead right. Interesting. So I guess saying that this is some sort of a new 70s band. The mention of the ads is interesting because Casablanca was probably out there getting ads, and these records are getting reviewed because they're getting ads. So there you go. Kind of interesting. I always find it neat that to find comparatives for any of this kind of music. So we've got the New York Dolls, MC5 Stooges, that all makes sense, but there's the errant weird comparison to Argent and Rick Wakeman in there. So there you go. That's our first episode of Reliving Old Reviews is a Useless Tool of Confusion. Check in next time. We're probably going to talk about Kiss again.